Welcome everybody. We really appreciate you coming here for this discussion this afternoon. This is ongoing forums put on by the Hamtramck NAACP. My name is Bill Meyer. I'm the Vice President of the Hamtramck NAACP. And I know it's not something that everybody likes to do, is get out in the afternoon and talk about racism and discrimination and all that sort of stuff, which is a very vital, important issue, but I'm sure we'd all like to be watching a football game or something else, but this is important. And you people deserve all the respect for coming here and being concerned enough about this issue. So I, first of all, would like to give you all a round of applause. Let's give each other a round. Thank you. And that also gets the blood moving in our hands, and we're awake now. Okay, so here we go. I want to introduce you to the room and what's going on here. First of all, we have several tables. We have a sales table right here of DVDs from our previous forums, and also some t-shirts from the Hamtramck NAACP. And if you care to pick any of that up, our friend Mike Kapushniak is sitting there, and he'd be glad to take your $5 or whatever it costs for that. We also have a membership table when you first came in there where you signed in. As a matter of fact, Tisha, could you bring me that membership list? Okay, if you're not a member of the Hamtramck NAACP, we encourage you to join. We need members and we need activist members also. So one of our secretaries is here. This is Darla Swint, and she will, and she has membership forms, okay? And before you leave today, if you'd like to join us, please do that. Also, we have a youth table, and Tisha Franklin, our treasurer here, is in charge of the new youth council here in Hamtramck that we're trying to develop, and Tisha's going to be heading that, and we'd like you to talk to her if you're interested in that aspect of our work with the NAACP. It's a long-established organization, as you know, 100-year anniversary a couple of years ago, so it's going into 102 years as one of the longest civil rights organizations in the world. So also, we have some wonderful food over here, and you're all invited to partake anytime throughout this discussion. And we'd like to thank Twyla Meyer for helping put the food together, and Renee Farber for helping with the food, and Tisha and Juanita, thank you for the food. Now we know some of you are fasting, and it'll be here till at least 6:30 when we're done here, so feel free to join us then. And now I have some thanks to go out here. I'd like to first of all thank the NAACP Executive Board, and I think most of us are here, so I'd like you to meet us. The president of the Hamtramck NAACP is Juanita Seifers, and she's at the front table there. Juanita? We have two vice presidents. I'm one of them, and Kamal Rahman is the other one, and he's not here. We have our secretaries, which is Darla Swint is our secretary of the NAACP. Our assistant secretary is Robert Zwolik, back there, Robert Zwolik. And our treasurer, the people that take our membership money, as treasurer and assistant treasurer, this is Tisha Franklin at the front table, our treasurer. And she's also the head of the youth council, so she's going to have her hands full. Not that she doesn't already have her hands full. But also, Twyla Meyer is the assistant treasurer with our Hamtramck NAACP committee. That's the 7 of us. And we do have 5 other members of the executive committee that you'll see their names in the newsletter. We have a newsletter that's published for the first time this month. Please make sure you get a copy of it. It's at the front table there. It lists our activities when we meet. We meet once a month, the first Saturday of every month in Hamtramck. Also, I'd like to thank the committee who helped us put this together here, and especially Ken Bean, who is our video person over here, who came in early and helped us set up, and he's videotaping this program. Thank you, Ken. And the hall here is always supportive. I want you to know that Tom Cervinak and People's Community Services are always available to help the community, and we appreciate you for letting us have this event here. Tom Cervinak and the people who work here, Rose Hyder, and Jane is at the front. Is Jane out front there? Okay, and also Raymond Martin helped us out. Let's give the People's Community Service a nice round of applause. And also, in organizing this specific forum about Muslims, Arabs, and the NAACP, we approached the Hamtramck High School principal, and we'd like to thank Rebecca Westrate, the new principal at the high school. She couldn't be here today, but she helped us immensely in helping to procure some students to help us for this program. So we thank, in absence, Ms. Stensia, Ms. Westrate, the principal of the high school. Also, I would like to thank the person standing in for him today is a teacher at the high school, and a good friend of mine, actually. It's Mike Stenvig. Let's give a nice welcome to Mike Stenvig. Wave your hand, Mike. Okay. Now, before we start, and let me tell you what the formality is. I got many more dignitaries I want to introduce, but before I do that, let you know what we're doing. I'm going to finish introducing the rest of the important people here, which is everybody here, I guess, but we'll single out a few. We're going to introduce the students first. They're going to come and talk for about half an hour, and then we're going to invite our adult guests to come up and speak about what was said about the students, and that'll be about an hour with the adults. And all through this, we have a roving mic here, and I want you to just raise your hand anytime throughout the discussion while they're talking. If you want to add to the discussion, we don't want this just talk, and then at the end you ask questions. If you hear something that you want to address, feel free, please, to raise your hand. I'm sure our guests would be more than happy to address your concerns right then, and I'll just bring the mic over to you. We have no time limit, although try to be fair to everybody and help contribute to the discussion. So we want everybody to participate. We have from the UAW, we have Ying Ji right here, came from the UAW. She's our secretary at the Solidarity House. Thank you for joining us, Ying Ji. She helped us organize the Hamtramck NAACP branch when we reorganized 2 years ago. We thank you for that help. Of course, the legendary icon in Hamtramck, who has been with the NAACP for years, Miss Yvonne Myrick, and she's also on the school board of Hamtramck. Miss Myrick. We have the superintendent of Hamtramck Schools, is Tom Nichai, is with us today. Tom Nichai. We have the school president from the middle school, Kosciuszko, Nuo Ivezdi. Nuo, thank you for joining us. And from Holbrook School, we have Russ Robinson. Thank you, Russ, for joining us. And we have an election coming up. For those of you who don't realize, in Hamtramck on Tuesday we have a very important election. We have 5 candidates running for the council seat. We have, how many running for the school board? 6, is it? 6? Okay, I know we have 1 candidate for the school board. It's Darla Swint, right here. And is there any other candidates for the school board? Okay. Well, we have 5 candidates for the city council, and Robert Zwolik is one of the candidates. Robert Zwolik. Abdul El-Ghazali is another candidate. He actually helped us organize this event from the beginning. It was his idea to have an event in the Arab community so that we could involve the Arab community with the NAACP. So we're following his role, and thank you, Dr. El-Ghazali. And then Kathy Gordon is another candidate running, and Dilshad Chowdhury could not be here. He's working today. And the 5th candidate, Anamia. So those are the 5 candidates. For those of you who live in Hamtramck and want to know more about these candidates, I had a chance to interview each one of them, ask them all the same questions. They had the same amount of preparation to answer the questions. It's online. You can go to YouTube and look up Hamtramck Council candidate. And all 5 will come up. And they all speak and address all the questions equally. And you can get a better idea of where they're all coming from. I wish we could have done it for the school board candidates, but we didn't have time to pull that off. So you can get a better idea of the 5 council candidates by going online to YouTube, or you can go to our own website, which is onehamtramck.org, onehamtramck.org. Okay, so now we're going to introduce you to our students. We have 3 students here. One of them that was scheduled couldn't be here, but we have a stand for that person. We're very fortunate to do that. Let me make sure I have the paper here. Okay, first, our first guest that's going to be here from the high school is Simone El Hagri. Simone El Hagri. We want to give her a nice round of applause. Please come up, Simone. And we also, she's in the 11th grade. We have a 12th grader with us, actually a good friend of mine, Lopez Davis. Lopez is here. Let's give Lopez a nice welcome. Lopez and I are on the same volleyball team, and he's an exceptional athlete, so watch out for this guy, okay? And then, unfortunately, Shahan Ali could not be here, but we do have a great stand, and we appreciate Syed Rahman for joining us. Syed Rahman, let's give him a welcome. He's in the 10th grade. Syed is a Bangladeshi, Simone is Yemeni, and we just wanted you to know the background, so it has a little bit to do with our discussion today, because we're talking about anti-Muslim and anti-Islamic sentiment in the community, and also the long history of racism in society. Now, we're not talking about Hamtramck specifically because there's been no incidences. We have good people here. We want to make sure we don't have issues in the future, and that's why we're going to talk about this and prevent it, because I think racism and discrimination is the issue that's kept undercover most of the time, and people just say it doesn't exist, or they don't want to address it. So some people do think it exists, and we want to make sure that we bring it outboard and address it. So there's some terms that we're going to be using that we want to make sure we're sure about. The racism and racial discrimination. It's discrimination on an ethnic or cultural basis. According to the United Nations, however, there is no distinction between the term racial discrimination and ethnicity discrimination. The United Nations considers them the same. Islamophobia, we've heard many times. This describes prejudice against or hatred or irrational fear of Islam or Muslims. It came into usage more after 9/11, and it's been an increasing trend as more Muslims come to America. We have several communities of color in Hamtramck. We have African Americans for many, many years here. Of course, African Americans people have suffered the worst Holocaust in world history. With the death toll from 4 centuries of Atlantic slave trade is estimated at about 10 million lost lives. And we're still paying the price for this in our society. Bangladeshis came from a country that's one of the poorest in the world. 30% of their population was below the poverty line as of 2011. 3 million were killed in the ethnic fighting in 1972. There's been allegations of rape, ethnic cleansing in Bangladesh. They're going through war crimes trials today in Bangladesh. Now, although Arabs are considered white in the US Census, we all know that discrimination exists against the society, against the Arab society. There's been a rise after 9/11. Here's a quote: "The only vicious racial stereotype that's not only still permitted, but actively endorsed in Hollywood is that of Arabs as crazed terrorists." That still is allowed. Now, Yemen, it's on the edge of civil war right now. It has a growing opposition movement to the rule of their president, Saleh. They're going in turmoil right now. These people that live in the city, that all somehow ended up together in Hamtramck, all have a history, their own history. And some of you can read about this or hear about this in a movie that I produced called Home Sweet. That's on our website, onehamtramck.org. Interviews with immigrants in Hamtramck, and we're trying to find common ground with everybody. And I think if we appreciate the background of everybody, we can appreciate each other's common needs in society. So we have 3 students here who have lived through a few years of high school in Hamtramck. Hamtramck, probably the most diverse community, one of the most diverse communities in the country. This is 2 square miles, and it's been said many times in like 26 languages spoken in the high school. But we all know that. We have a great opportunity here to learn from each other's cultures. So what we're going to try to find out now is, in the past we've heard of some ethnic fighting in the high school. We all have explanations how this happened, what causes this, some of the solutions. So we're going to address this, and I was happy to find out when I went to high school that there's a much better sense of feeling in the high school at this point. I haven't heard about much fighting in the newspaper anymore, and I think things have changed somewhat. So we want the students to come here and be as honest and forthright as they can in an audience sitting here like this. So I want to make this comfortable for our students. We're not putting them on a grilling table here. We just want them to say what they really have to say, things that they aren't allowed to say a lot of times in a controlled environment. This is uncontrolled. You can say what you need to say, that's important. And the audience, please raise your hands anytime you have a question. We'll sort of have a dialogue if we can do this. So, I just want to first ask the 3 of them, and you can speak anytime you want. Let's make sure your mics are working. Can you test them? Just say a word.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, why don't we just go one at a time? Lopez, could you just give us a little background about your experience in terms of race and discrimination, your life in high school since you've been there, and any issues related to that, and what you've been doing in high school? Just a few minutes, and then we'll give you the other 2 a chance to introduce yourselves.
My life in high school was
Not well, it was awesome so far. So I really haven't experienced any discrimination upon myself, but I do see other children being discriminated on for different types of reasons, and I think that's it.
Okay, we'll start with that. That's good. Okay, let's see, Syed. Syed was just put in the hot seat. He wasn't going to be on the panel, and now he volunteered to help us out because we had an empty seat here. So, give us a little bit of your background in high school.
I'm only in the 10th grade right now, so far everything's been good with me, nothing involving me or anything, and everything, I see it, like Lopez said, I see it often, other kids discriminated and stuff like that, so that's about it.
Okay, and now our third guest today, Simone. Can you give us a little of your background in high school?
Well, I'm loud enough as it is. I don't think I need a microphone, but I'm a junior, and I'm very school involved, and the first thing that people are amazed to find out is that I'm Arabic, and I'm school involved. And so the discrimination portion, I've always been discriminated about that. Like, they're shocked to find out that I'm very outgoing and that I kind of break the barriers of what a Muslim girl is. And so that's my experience. But so far, I've been able to show people that being Muslim and being an Arabic girl is more than just what they see.
Okay, thank you. Now, that's the first introduction. I guess the question next would be, there's been fighting in school. It's probably lessened at this point. However, we wonder if you could each give us your idea of why there's fighting going on. What causes student fighting, and especially if there's any possibility of race or discrimination or ethnicity having a factor in this. Anybody can speak.
I think it starts at home, at the home base. If the child was raised to be violent, that person is going to be violent until someone steps in and tell them not to be violent or discipline them to the point that they can respect others. And it involves with the world society and what people think of themselves, or I should be this small, or I should have this type of shirt, or this type of jeans, or these pair of shoes. And if you don't have those, you're considered no one. And no one should be discriminated upon because of what you wear. As long as God provided you with clothes on your shoes on your feet and clothes on your body, you should be happy and grateful instead of fighting and trying to prove a point to someone else.
Okay, so we shouldn't be fighting, but the question is, why do you think people are fighting in high school?
A lot of people are fighting. It's because of the stuff that you wear, and sometimes people like make judgments upon each other. And so when someone tells someone else, "Oh, you look ugly," and that person takes it offensive, that person's going to get mad and retaliate from that.
I think adding on to what Lopez is saying, the home basis, I think it's the way they were raised and the values that their family holds. And most often, you'll find that, we're teenagers, we're angsty, and we're full of emotion. And I think that collides when kids don't understand one another. And again, the way they were raised, like, for example, the African American and the Muslim or Arabic, I think most times it's because, it's just, one person fights with the other person, and it just so happens that it's race. So most times it's not really race, but I think it's just the mentality that the certain person has.
Yeah, I agree with both. It does kind of start at the home. It depends on what they were taught and how to act sometimes. And some kids do just pass judgment for no reason, like are quick to judge, and it's something easily just breaks out.
So to emphasize on that, I think it's just being a teenager and emotions, and then the mentality, and then society as well, the way they, the perception that we have. And I think that's one of the leading factors.
Okay, so you're all three saying you don't think race or ethnicity is a factor, or in this case, there isn't?
I think it is often. It's just like it starts off with one or two kids, and then everyone just decides they have to have to back up their own race and help them out, and then it becomes like gangs versus gangs, or like groups versus groups.
I think in some cases, but not always. It's the issue or the problem that they have with one another. But yeah, sometimes I do think it's racial as well.
Yes, sorry. Wait a minute. We have a recording, so we have to give you a mic when you talk.
So it sounds as though you all are kind of skating around the need to be specific and answer the question. Exactly, what is it? You know, you're skating at it. What is it that's causing the fighting?
Like I said, it's the society. Like people think it's a competition of what you need to do. Like there's already a competition in the world trying to compete and getting to major colleges. What I'm saying is there's competition saying like, well, who wears this and who wears that. When I was in high school, well, I am in high school, but still, there really wasn't no racial tension between anyone. So that's really it.
Well, I'll go with your answer, and I'll say that it is, because it's misunderstanding. So yeah.
Can I ask my question? From your point of view, as a youth point of view, from your perspective, what do you think the solution for the problems that's happened exactly in your school, not outside of your school? From your perspective, I don't want to what other people think. I want to know what you think as a youth, as high school students.
I think it would be the fights and the conflicts and violence would be less if kids were just more educated about other people's race and religion and all that, and they wouldn't worry about all that much, and they were just educated better at home and stuff.
So yeah, put them in a room and kind of have people, like adults, advisors, sit there and kind of, you know, I think it's an old-fashioned way, but it's the best way to kind of have the two students or whatever students that are going or that are in the conflict currently, and kind of just set them down and tell them. It's what we need. We need to, you know, we need people to listen to us, but most importantly, we need to be informed.
I think the foundation, like I say, is from the household. If their parents is not educated, how is the students going to be educated? I mean, there's nothing else you can explain about that. Because my mom was educated. She taught me how to respect elders, and not even elders, everyone around me. So I think that's it, yeah.
Question here?
No, I actually want to congratulate the young men and the young women for being out there and agreeing to do this. I know it's tough, and I know you're nervous, but continue. You're doing a wonderful job. My name is Noé Vezay. I'm a principal at Kosciuszko Middle School, and I've been a teacher in Hamtramck for 28 years, teaching and administration. And I agree with the kid. Somebody asked, why do fights start? So why do fights start in any school? I mean, fights have been in schools. Kids have had conflicts and altercation. It becomes a racial issue only, in my experience, only after we have talked to the parents. And the parents, especially if the kids happen to be from two different ethnic communities or two different races, then it sort of becomes an issue. Kids start fighting not because one is black and one is Arab or one is white, because somebody bumped into somebody and somebody tripped somebody. At that moment, when the fight occurs in the building, it is not because one is white and one is black. The issue becomes after they have left the building, after they have gone home, after they have talked to the friends and the parents and so forth, then it's, oh, yes, you know, he was attacked by a black student, or he was attacked by an Arab student, and eventually, especially if it happens, if the fight or altercation occurs on a Friday afternoon, then they have the whole weekend to discuss it on Facebook, texting, and then we got to deal with it on Monday morning.
So you're saying it creates a problem once the kids get involved, but I'm just being honest here. The whole racial fighting it was an annual event every year, and it was racial because it happened so long ago, and then it's like, well, every year we're gonna do the same. So it's like, for example, the African American versus the Arabics. It was an annual event. It's exactly how it went, and it didn't matter what season or what time or what year. It would happen all the time.
I understand what you're talking about, but to understand what Mr. Ivezza was talking about, he was saying that at the point, for an example, someone stole someone's money, and the person was African American, there was a person that was Arabic American. And so that African American says, he stole my money. And so at that point, they're conflicting and telling, well, I want my money back. Those two are fighting until over the weekend, they're going to tell their parents, and their parents are going to try to find the other person's parents. Then they're going to try to report to Hamtramck Public Schools saying, this is what happened, this is what happened. And then all that instigating is going to start and create, and then those African American people is going to gather all their African American people so they won't lose the battle. It isn't like, oh, African Americans and Arabics are hating each other.
But it's the mentality that students have, and that's what kind of creates the conflict. But I understand what you guys are coming from and what you're saying, Mr. Ivezza, that sometimes it doesn't start just because of the race, it's because of the issue, and then it kind of, leads on further. But I mean, his question was, is it a contributing factor? And I say, when the whole instigating, becomes a problem, then yeah, it does.
I want to echo Mr. Ivezza's sentiments and say thank you to the three of you for doing this. I think it's very timely. As a principal of an elementary school, and having been in Hamtramck now for the last 4 years, I'd like to know kind of your opinion about where you believe this starts, how young it starts. Because I'm going to give you my experience and tell you that in the elementary school, I see this in the elementary school. And sort of along the same lines as Mr. Ivezza says, but I also, one of you mentioned it starts in the home. And I have parent conversations whenever there are any kind of conflicts, things happen, parents have to come in to see me. I see this sentiment and these issues in the conversations I have with the parents, where there's a feeling about the other race or a feeling about, I've had parents of both races, and in my school particularly, we have a mixture of races, but primarily Yemeni students and African American students. I've heard Yemeni parents speak negatively about African Americans. I've heard African American parents speak negatively about Yemeni. And that starts, and I see some of the conflict happen in second, third grade, fourth grade. So I'm wondering from your experience, where did you see that? Did you notice it when you were younger, when you were in elementary school and you were growing up? Did you see some of the same things? Or is it really escalated once you've got to the high school where kids are older and we have many more influences such as Facebook and those sort of things Mr. Ivezza spoke about?
Well, I think nowadays it is, especially because we have 12-year-olds on Facebook, or, kids trying to grow up, and so quickly, whereas in my generation it kind of wasn't like that. But I understand what you're saying, and sometimes it's what he said, it starts from the home, but I think most importantly, this is just my opinion, but sometimes I feel like parents don't care to educate themselves. And what he said, if parents don't educate themselves and how little kids, and I think it's what they see, and it can start at any age.
I think that people misjudge people. They only seen the outside of the house, but they haven't stepped inside the house. That's just like saying, I met you and said hello and what's your name, instead of getting into the person's life and understanding where they come from. And I really didn't experience any conflicts until I got